This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of the great state of Pennsylvania, Ty Fischer, who is the head of school at Veritas Academy up there. And they're doing some really cool things. And him and I talked before the podcast about some of the topics we're going to go over. And this will be a little of fun. We're going to talk about generational success in your school and a couple other things. So stay tuned here in just a few minutes for all of that. But before we jump into it, I always want to pass it off to the guests to introduce themselves. So Ty, welcome to the podcast today, sir.
Hi, Mitchell. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. I'm Ty Fischer. We like to say I'm the head of school of the Veritas Academy because there are about 700 classical Christian schools in the country now, but Veritas was one of the founding members, one of the charter members of the Association of Classical and Christian Schools. So there were only 22 schools in America or so back when Veritas Academy was founded. We're here in beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where it's a little windy today. But it is, the school has been functioning for 29 years, and I've been the head of school for 28 years. There was that one dark year at the beginning that no one really remembers well. So I'm a board member for the Association of Classical and Christian Schools. So I get to see a little bit more of the world of especially classical Christian schools. And we've grown from a school of 26 when I arrived to a school of over 400 now. So
very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love the part about the Veritas Academy. It reminds me of when everybody's on the NFL and they're talking about the Ohio State University when they say it.
That's kind of the dig right there. Yeah, because so I don't know if you know this, but there's like 4 names, like Veritas, Covenant, Providence, and that make up like 60% of it's not that much, but there's so many classical Christian schools named that. But we're the Veritas Academy.
I love that because you're so right. Because we'll talk with schools that we're working with or even podcasts, and I'll be like, they're like, oh, I'm with Veritas Academy, and every time they say, I'm like, okay, which Veritas Academy are where are you located? Because they're all over the place. You're very correct. Yeah. So I do love to start with the same question for everybody. So I think the guests have come to expect this question. So I would say if I was to come visit you, so you're sitting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, what would you say, Mitchell, you need to eat this and do this to experience Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Wow. So in Lancaster, there's a number of different things that I would recommend. It's interesting that the Lancaster that I'm in now is in some ways the same as it would have been 100 years ago. That sounds silly, but it's almost true because, there are people called the Amish here in Lancaster that are doing exactly what they were doing 100 years ago. But the Lancaster is also the number 1 per capita refugee city in America. And it's mainly because the Mennonite Church has brought Christian refugees here that are persecuted from all over the country. So one of the neat things about Veritas is we have 16 different countries represented in our student body, and none of them are international students that are coming from families overseas to live here in America with another family. They're all just families that have roots in other countries.
Whoa, that is really cool.
You wouldn't have thought that, would you?
No.
But so I would say if you're coming to Lancaster County, I would challenge you to eat a red beet egg. Okay. So it's a boiled egg that is basically pickled in red beet juice. So it really ends up kind of purple, and you salt it a little bit, and I really like red beet eggs.
Cool.
So and then what was the other question?
What should I do? What should I go do to experience the area, like a touristy
Oh,
thing?
yeah. So there's so many touristy things here in Lancaster County. I think that the I think the best thing to do really to get a feel for the county is to come here in the fall. And we have what we call fair season. So Lancaster County has 500,000 people in it. So it's a very populous county, but you think of it as very rural, because the largest city in Lancaster County is Lancaster City, and it's about 60,000 people. So and I've not counted, I could be off substantially here, but there are like 15 or 20 small towns in Lancaster County, and all of them have their own fair, and the fairs have different flavors. So like the Ephrata Fair is kind of a street fair. The Southern Lancaster County or Solanco Fair is a really agricultural fair. So, but you basically have a running from like late August to November. You have fairs that you can go to just about every week.
That's cool. So now, do all these fairs have the red beet egg thing? Like, do all of them? Is that a thing at a fair?
Yeah, so you can get them at some of the fairs, I would think. I mean, usually, like my wife's family is, her family's been in Lancaster for 7 or 8 generations. Um, so we go to the fair that she grew up with sometimes, and that's the Solanco Fair. It's a very southern Lancaster County's very agricultural area. I'm sure they would have red beet eggs there, but Lancaster County is one of the top dairy farming counties. It's the top dairy farming county east of the Mississippi. So there's some milkshakes there that um, that you got to have. And then I would encourage you as well to, if you really want to get the feel for Lancaster County, there are 2 places, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, that are within about 10 minutes of the school. And they make the best ice cream in the world. One of them is Fox Meadows, which is they have, and one of their stores is about 2 minutes from the school. The Fox family does incredible ice cream. And then if you want to get back to another place that doesn't do as many different kinds, but really good, solid ice cream is Lap Valley Farms. And the thing about Lap Valley that's fun is that you can actually go and meet the cow that produced your ice cream. They have them all like there, and you can go up and pet them and on the nose and stuff. So
Love it.
yeah, yeah. Lancaster County is it's the best place to raise a family that I know of anywhere. It's incredible. There's a lot of common grace here. They say that there's like 4 times more than the average students that are educated in Christian schools and home schools, so kind of outside the public system, but there's 16 times more educational options than in a normal
Wow.
regular place. So it's like a very, like if you think of it as a lake, there's a lot of fish in the lake, but there's a lot of boats in the lake too. So you have to, and Veritas, it's funny. We've as a classical Christian school, we kind of have our niche laid out for us, and everybody else is trying to. I feel like they try to do like so many things. Veritas Academy, we have the Colonel Sanders theory. We do one thing. We do classical Christian education, try to do the best we can.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒅 Foundation. I absolutely love the 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒅 Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒅 Foundation Podcast Network. The �ْ𝒂𝒅 Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the �ْ𝒂𝒅 Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the �ْ𝒂𝒅 Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit �ْ𝒂𝒅foundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please, please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Love it. Man, well, it sounds like when I go there, I'm going to have some ton of fun in the fall with some fairs. I'm going to eat a lot of eggs. These red beet, you said red beet eggs?
Red beet eggs, and got to get some ice cream too.
Okay. That'll my mom, my wife.
You're stopping by, you gotta let me know, and I can take you around to the secret places.
See, that's what I love. I like the local stuff. I grew up in Alaska, and I always tell people, I was like, hey, if you ever go to Alaska, you got to let me know, because there's certain things that you just won't know being a tourist, that you go up there, that all the things you're going to tell you to go to, but you really want to do I like the local stuff. Like him, hit me up with the local things. So
you're a good man there, Mitchell.
Thanks, Ty. So go to Alaska. I'll hook you up. All right. Let me know. Well, as we dive into today's episode, I know we talked about a couple things we're just going to dive back and forth on, with some questions back and forth, but you've been at the school for since the 1900s, Ty. You've been there for a while, 28 years.
This is my second millennium.
There you go. See, so we're talking about generational success at school. So how do you go about having that at a school, generational success, where, like, obviously eventually you're going to retire, you're going to have this, pass the baton on to somebody else, and what is that? Or maybe not. You're just going to be there forever. I don't know. But those that are listening,
so that's an interesting thing, and I'll probably finish up. So the question about generational success is one that I've actually been thinking a lot about this year in particular, because this year we have our first alumni enrolling their children as kindergartners. So one of them, this is a student who was here through 8th grade. He was back, and we're a covenantal school, so we have to have at least one parent, we prefer to, professing faith in Christ. And so we get to ask that question during our parent interviews, and he said, "Oh yeah, I came to know about Christ here at Veritas as a student.
Wow,
a teacher shared Christ with me, and I've been following Christ since grammar school." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is so wonderful." So I think that we're starting to see the fruit of some of that. So because those kinds of conversations make you really happy. I've thought a little bit more about it. So the challenging thing is, I think that right now people move around so much that it's hard to gauge success. So in being here 28 years, I joke with people that, I feel like I'm starting to understand my job now after 28 years, but it takes a long time to even get a gauge on how you're going to measure success. And for us here at Veritas, it's there's a success in kind of the process, but the process that we have is a 13-year process. And really, it's a 15-year process if you start at the beginning of our preschool. So we could be cultivating loving, serving, thinking students, which is our mission statement here, that we repeat over and over and over again, so that I tell teachers in their training that if you get hit, the mission statement is so that if you're down in the gym and you get hit by a dodgeball in the head and you can't remember anything else, but you can do these two things, the next choice is this choice. Pick the one that is has the best opportunity to cultivate loving, serving, thinking students. That's the mission here at Veritas. And I think that the velocity of the accomplishment of that mission means that there has to be alignment in your faculty. There has to be alignment in your so alignment amongst your parents, and even alignment amongst your students, especially your older students. So we are we are really looking to make sure that we've got that alignment in place, because even though the process is something that we're working on all the time, so the process that we're working on is one that you can't make a very good judgment about if you're just going to watch it for 30 minutes. It has to be one that you're going to watch for 13 years. And the it's and also the process is just a part of what we do. We're really looking, when we're thinking about success and generational success, it's that process really isn't done in 13 years. It's done when you have it's done when you have Christian adults making good decisions about their family life. It's when what I've taught many classes here at Veritas, and I used to teach rhetoric, and one of my things that I taught in my rhetoric class is that I'm going to give you a grade in class, but that's not actually how rhetoric works in the real world. I said, one of these days, you guys, you're going to, get down on one knee and you're going to ask a girl to marry you, and she's not going to give you like 79 C plus. She's either going to say yes or she's going to say no, right? So success, I talk, Aristotle talks about happiness being the goal of life, and Jefferson talks about, the pursuit of happiness being something we're really interested in here in our country. But I tell parents, I want to make your children happy, but I'm a lot more interested in making them happy at 80 years old than I am at 18. At 18, you have a lot of work to do. At 80, you're looking back on a life, Lord willing, that's well lived. And I hope that you're thinking back and saying, those teachers that I had at Veritas had an impact on me. Those books that I learned to love at Veritas continue to have a lifelong impact on me. So that's, like when I think about generational success, I'm a lot more interested. The process is even something that, we're always refining, but the kind of people that we want to see are those kinds of people that thankfully I get to hang out with when we have alumni events. So and then the other thing is, it's really hard to judge that kind of success, because we're all a work in progress as well. So I think that I tell my staff that we'll know how well we're doing, in about 50 years. And at that point, it's really going to be, have the young men and women that have gone out from our school had an impact on this community and on the communities that they're a part of. Like, that's in the long run. We want to see that impact pouring out of their lives into the lives of others.
That's awesome. So those schools that are listening going, we want that. Are there some things, maybe suggestions you would have, like specific things for, like, I know churches, runs into the same issue too. Like, got kids. I was a youth pastor for years. You try your best with the 1 hour, 2 hours you got a week with the kids. Obviously it falls a lot back on the families, of course, too, but where the kids just fall away, they go to college, they fall away, they don't come back, or maybe they come back later on, maybe when they have kids. In terms of faith, are there some things though you've seen in the years you've been there, of like, man, if we see this, if we're able to do this, or the students are doing this, then they're more likely to stay in the faith or stay involved to where they want their kids in Christian school. I know it's a really long question, but is there anything that
Yeah.
you've kind of picked up on that maybe could
No,
be?
no. So I would say this, that um, I I and some of our administration, both on the admission side and on the hiring side, are really key to keeping that culture together, because we're the doors in and out. Um, and I think that the most important thing that you can do to be a successful school is to hire and train good teachers, and those teachers on the and I think my answer would change a little bit for if I was doing like a college or something like that. But on the K to 12 level, they have to love Christ. They have to love kids, love teaching kids the subject. They love have to love teaching kids of that age. Like our kindergarten teachers would not be as most of them would not be as successful in high school. And if I sent some of our high school teachers down to teach kindergarten, I would fear for the kids, because they just wouldn't keep track of them very well. They would be they would not be as successful. So, but for us, we're really looking for people that have a vital living relationship with Christ. Okay, because that's what we want for the kids. That's the root and the foundation of everything. And if the teacher doesn't have that, they're not going to be able to take the kids in that direction. Okay, and just having it doesn't promise that all of the kids are going to immediately fall in line and go. We do not have an easy button whereby the Holy Spirit is parceled out to our students. We don't have that. We wait on God for that. But if you want to um, if you want to have an environment that's going to encourage that, you need to put people into that environment that are going to encourage it. So that's first. The second thing is they have to be fitted and love teaching kids of that age. And the third thing is uh, that they need to love Christ. They need to love teaching kids of that age, and they need to love the subject matter that they're teaching. So basically, I'm in classical education, we talk a lot about rightly ordered loves, and that doesn't just mean that you love the right things. It means that you love each thing in the right proportion to the other things. Like if I can love ice cream, and I can love my wife Emily. Okay, if I love my wife Emily less than I love ice cream, I have what's called a disordered love there. She should be higher than the ice cream, although the ice cream here, like I said, is pretty good. Okay, uh, but uh, here at Veritas, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help these students have rightly ordered loves. But we believe these strange things, right? In an age of despair, we believe that life is a comedy, that it has a happy ending. Um, in this time where we see everyone being anxious, we think it's a time of great joy. So I want teachers that just exude that kind of joy for living. So when we interview teachers, a lot of times we're talking to them about, what do you do outside of school? And if they say, all I do is read books, that's not the kind of teacher I'm looking for. And it's not because we don't believe in books. It's not because we don't read hard books. We do. It's because life is more than that. Life is more than that. And not every one of our students is going to be equally bookish. Some of them, golly, their parents have to like kick them out of the house to go outside and play. And others of them, I had my youngest daughter. If you gave her a volleyball or a book, she picked the volleyball almost every time. So that's one of those things when we're thinking about generational success is the only way that you're going to be able to work at it is to say we're going to work at this over a long period of time. Now, for us, this is where you said eventually you're going to retire, and I was kind of shaking my head. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're building a succession plan for our school, not because I'm planning on leaving, but because the mission that we have and the success that we want to have is longer than the lifespan of any head of school. Okay. And that means that, one of the things, and Keith Nix, I don't know if Keith is at one of the other Veritas's, Veritas School in Richmond, which is a wonderful school, by the way. But Keith is a friend, and he wrote his master's thesis on classical Christian schools and succession planning. And he said this to my board. He said, the leadership in the classical Christian movement is, in the next 20 years, almost all of them will not be running classical Christian schools. Some will be in the hereafter, and some will be nearing that. He said, and we haven't done a great job of stocking the bench with leaders. So that really has been heavy on my heart since then. So, we're kind of revising the way that our board works, and then we're making sure that we're being intentional. Like, I have board members that are going to be accompanying me to some conferences over the summer, mainly so that they can start to make connections in the classical Christian world, because someday they're going to need another head of school, and we want them to have those connections. And we have some alumni who have been, for instance, involved in the military, who are looking at retirement, and that retirement is going to happen, when they're like 42 or 43 years old. And I've been talking to them about, hey, what would you think about getting involved in a classical Christian school? Those are the kinds of people that we need to be encouraging and bringing along and preparing to take on those leadership roles if we want to see the success of one generation lead to multi-generational success. And honestly, Mitchell, if we don't have that kind of multi-generational success, there's more work that needs to be done than any generation can accomplish. So it's a long process. But the good news is that Christ calls us to the long game, and if we look back in Christian history, there's nothing new about that.
100%. And I love that you have brought this up, because obviously getting the wrong head of school in there after you retire, you get the wrong person in. I mean, all those years could just go to waste if you get the wrong person to come take over. And so this is a good point. Actually, nobody's brought up. That's why
it's important that your board, if it's bad enough head of school, you should get rid of them, but that's why understanding that culture that we're after is crucial, not just to have it like disseminated through folks, through the community, but especially for those leaders who are making those decisions about who to put in charge of things in the community. They need to be looking for that culture fit that's going to carry on the things that are most important to your mission. Hey, I just want to take a really quick break from the podcast to highlight one of our amazing partners and sponsors, ClassReach. If you're a new school administrator or founder and are struggling to keep up with all the hassles of planting a new school, like collecting tuition, communicating with parents, or handling student data, then you need ClassReach. ClassReach is the all-in-one software that helps with everything from admissions and tuition to classroom management and parent communications. Sign up for a free consultation with one of their school specialists and see how
ClassReach can help your school grow today. You guys can check them out online, classreach.com. They are a kingdom-minded company, and I love their leadership team there. I've become friends with a lot of them. They truly are a great company. I support them and I love them, and you guys will love them too. Check them out at classreach.com. Now, back to the show. This would definitely be one of those cases which you say you hire very slow, but you fire fast on that one.
Well, I would say, I'm glad that they didn't fire fast with me. I came here when I was 25 years old, right out of seminary, and I think our school board and our community was very patient with me. I hope that they will not have to be as patient with the next head of school, because this was back at the beginning of the movement, and I was, teaching and administering in the day, and then at night I would go home and write the curriculum for the next day. So it was a hothouse back in those days, when there was really, it was, instead of 700 schools, there were 20 schools, and with the curriculum didn't exist. So I think that those kinds of things are things that are, that's a wonderful thing that we did in the past. We're not going to recapitulate that, though. So the way that you succeed is not by stripping everything down and saying, okay, start again. It's by saying, we've come this far. Let us prepare you, whoever the next leader is, to take us further into this vision.
And how long would you say that would take if a school's this thing going, man, we need a succession plan like this, and the guy's leaving next year, 2 years from now? Like, what's the kind of the mindset they should have?
Yeah. So it's interesting that I'm supposed to. One of the things. Well, so let me. It's going to seem like a long-winded answer, but classical Christian schools, we always learn from the last disaster, right? So I think that what classical Christian schools have learned from, one of the things we've learned from the public schools, is that, there can be problems when people get something like tenure, and, they lose their accountability, right? So they might be off the rails, and it takes a multi-year effort to get them out of the building. So in classical Christian schools, in a lot of them, your teachers and administrators are on 1-year contracts. I'm not on a 1-year contract anymore, but then I have a lot of notice that I have to give, because there's recognition that if I leave the school, I'm putting the school in a very interesting and dangerous place.
Yeah.
So I think that in my heart, I'm thinking that I need to let them know a few years in advance of when I'm deciding to end my time at Veritas. And like, I could walk out of the building here and get hit by a bus, and they would have to deal with that, and that's why you start preparing people so that you have a bench to step in at that point. But that kind of one of the things that we were talking about was how things have evolved over the years. And I would say, just in the world of classical Christian schools, I think what we're seeing now is that schools are thinking about how to hand this off to the next generation. And that means that our boards, which start at a time when you're a tiny little startup school, your board is really like maybe in the building every day. If like, they're like administrators that you don't have, and then they become administrators you don't want. And it's really hard sometimes for those founding board members to kind of be transformed then into a board that is really thinking about the future and the pushing the school toward the vision and letting the administration run the school. But I think that we're seeing more schools now kind of getting to that point where there's a clarifying of here's what the board does, here's what the administration is accountable and responsible for, here's what the faculty does. And as we get those things in place, and as people as we move from the stem cell stage into the you have a particular function phase, I think that we can have better accountability to accomplish things, and we can get better at those things that we do because we're not doing everything. So, but I tell you what, those are hard. I feel like, on our board, I feel like I kind of go like, here's the 1.0 board founding, the 2.0 board recovering from founding, the 3.0 board, like now our strategic plans are not just things we feel really good about the day we create them, but we just put them away, and then the 4.0 board now there's a lot of sorting going on here at Veritas. And, as we can't behave the same way we did when we were a school of 26 as we need to behave, as a school of 400 or 500.
Sure. And with all these schools starting up, you talked about there was only 20 or so classical schools when you guys were starting up.
Yeah.
Now there being hundreds, and obviously by the time you're done, there'll be, I would probably even just say thousands. It's just
probably, yeah, it probably like 3 or 4 started while we had this podcast.
Yeah. Honestly, they're just popping up everywhere. There's a huge wave for that. So with all of that, there's going to need to be more head of schools, which means there's going to be more people on the bench, which means all these people need to be prepping and preparing for that, which is going to make it harder. I guess I would say harder than what it maybe used to be, because we need more of them because there's more schools. Or is that not maybe how you would view that?
Yeah. So I would say this, that that there's got to be 2 things, and one of them is there has to be some ways for people who are interested to get prepared. Okay. And I think that you see people like the Association of Classical and Christian Schools, like the Society for Classical Learning, like the program, up at Gordon College, which is a master's degree that, is that folks put together to really help people who are looking to prepare to go in that way. So that's one of the things. I don't think though, I don't think that all of this is just a systemic accomplishment. Okay. We've got to have vision, and then on the local level, we have to take that thing that I don't think's been in our mind as much, about seeing that young man or young woman that comes in and you say, that person has leadership potential. What do I need to do to develop them? Okay. So, David didn't take a class on how to be a king 101, he, but when God was sending Samuel out to anoint the new king, God was looking at the heart, and he said, that's the one right there. And he had plenty of preparation. Preparation had been like fighting bears and fighting lions and taking care of sheep. So I think that in some ways, if it all turns into a system, I think you're going to attract a lot of people that are really good at meeting the goals of systems. And I'm not sure that that's always the people that, I don't think David would have done very well in that. But we'd want David to be a leader at our school. because he was a man after God's own heart, and he killed giants and that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sure that, I always tell parents, I don't do discipline here, but I did back in the old days. And that sometimes people's sons would get sent down to me, and their moms, especially moms, would just be so distressed. And I would say, listen, King David would have gotten sent down to my office all the time. And you know what? I've got 4 daughters, so I need at least there to be 4 like King Davids that get through, So like just it's okay. It's okay. Like I'd rather him, you know, bang against the ropes and the walls and see if these you know than just sit quietly and be a perfectionist that is going to fall apart the first time he gets punched in the mouth.
Man, well, I feel like in all of this, you've seen changes happen in education. So we're talking about the need for you to have a person in mind. For all these schools should have a person in mind, or at least a plan in place to get that in there.
Well, probably not and probably it starts with not a person in mind, but a kind of person that you're looking for and sensitized to find. And as you're recruiting people to be an athletic director or a development director or a fifth grade teacher, trying to say, if we're looking for this kind of person eventually to be a leader, let's keep our head on a swivel. Sure. And make sure that we're seen in the community. It might be, like I said, a person retiring from the military. It might be someone who there are sometimes that classical Christian education and Christian education in general sometimes is it has such a vision element to it that I'll get parents that come in here and you can just tell they're almost high on the vision, and sometimes that's you shouldn't act too quickly with that, but you watch them, they start investing themselves deeper and deeper in, and they're like, I've got this, some job that has a lot more zeros behind it than the pay does than anything you have at your school, and they're like, yeah, but I want to do this. That's the kind of people that might make really great leaders in the future.
It's good. And fostering them and cultivating them now before you lose them to somewhere else too, which is obviously what you would hate to have happen. So in all this, you've seen education change obviously in the last 20 years. How I know we only have about 5-ish minutes or so to kind of talk this one out a little bit, but how have you kind of seen education change in the last 20 years? What do people need to have on their mind of like, this is where it's going and how it has changed from what you've seen in the 90s to now?
Yeah. If you want to just get a feel for this, I came to Veritas. I started my job during the Clinton administration. Okay. And during the Clinton administration, I never thought I'd be like wistful about the Clinton administration, but back then the folks that were involved in classical Christian education, I think that we thought that we were a vanguard, and the whole culture was just going to change all around us because we had this wonderful idea and we were going to educate kids, and there's not, the sky was even almost a different shade of blue. Not only was it was so hopeful, and then honestly, the work has been really challenging and really tough. And at some points, I'm like, boy, maybe we're a rear guard, like maybe the Benedict option's right. Maybe these Christian schools that are faithful are kind of like the monasteries that are making it through the dark ages and like, keeping the tradition of Western civilization alive. And, I think that a lifetime's probably not a long enough time to make a good judgment about those things because, now we feel somewhat like there's a little bit of wind in our sails. And I think that the great thing about faithful Christian schools, and that maybe this, I would say this about the classical Christian movement because I've been in that one, is that a lot of the decisions that are befuddling educational institutions now, we made those decisions 30 years ago, right? So when people want us to compromise our direction now, we're not um, we're not really interested. And I think that so as the educational like I see us, the real challenge for us for faithful Christian schools now is not how to be successful, but how to keep success from making you unsuccessful in the long run. So it's that we've got to figure out how to learn to do succession planning, how to budget in a way that is not just a faith-based budget, right? Faith-based budget, like, okay, we get to the end, the numbers don't work, so we put in different numbers to make them work, right? We need to learn how to be faithful in those areas that take expertise. We have to learn how to do development better. We need to learn how to help donors minister the ministry that God's given them by wealth creation and investment in the kingdom. We've got to get better at that kind of stuff without losing the core vision of what we're really about, cultivating, loving, serving, thinking students who are going to take Jesus Christ. That's Herman Bavinck above me there on that book. And if you turn around, his face is looking at me when I'm sitting at my desk. Bavinck reminds me that we're not trying to get back to the Middle Ages. We're trying to help these young men and women take Jesus out into every corner of our culture and every lawful field of study and career and calling today, right? We're sending them out. So we've got to get better at doing those things that would make us a better school, a better business, like those kinds of things, which without losing our first love, which is being laser focused on Jesus, on the mission of our school, and on putting in place people who can execute on that mission and drive us toward our vision.
Amen. And I feel like this is a perfect segue then into the last question I always ask people before we close out the podcast. So we've shared all about, I mean, honestly, all this was advice for those that are listening that are school leaders, but I always end with the same question of, if you were to share one piece of advice with one piece of advice more with the school leaders listening, what would that piece of advice be that maybe could bring home everything that we kind of just talked about? If they're like, man, we need to have a succession plan, and here's how education's changed. What's maybe one thing that comes to mind for you, Ty?
Yeah. And the thing that I would say is probably the most like summation of all of this is like, never forget that you're educating people. Like, we set our school limit at 520. It's not the right limit for everybody, but I know almost all of our students by name. I greet them in the morning. So maybe to put a finer point on this, you need to think about what you're doing. The Greek city-states had this thing called a paideia, and the paideia was everything in that city-state was made, the way you educated, the cultural festivals that they had, the jobs people did, they were all made to make a certain kind of people. H.D.F. Kitto in his book, The Greek, says every Greek city-state was like a cookie cutter, making the same thing over and over again, right? That's called a paideia. So you need to think about the paideia of your school. Ours starts out on the sidewalk outside my office where I greet the students in the morning, okay? But that paideia that we have is, of course, around the 7 liberal arts. But that's not the core of it. The core of it is what Paul talks about when he says, raise your children in the nurture. That Greek word in the New Testament, in the Greek New Testament, is paideia. Raise your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, the paideia of the Lord. Okay? So I think that thinking about everything in your school, everything in what you do, in how you treat people, in who you recruit, in who you admit, everything has to turn around that paideia of what are the kinds of people that you're trying to cultivate here at this school. So that would be the one piece of advice is never, if you stop being fascinated with the paideia of your school, quit.
Man, I love that. All right. So I think that was a great way to end the episode then, Ty, for those that are listening. So thank you for giving up your time today and for all your ears in education. And I'm hoping you're still there for another, let's say at least enough to get you to 50 years at the school. I think that's very doable though, because you'd be like 75 years old when you get to 50 years at the school. Am I right?
Yeah, and I mentioned to you that I have 3 daughters getting married in the next 5 months, so we'll see. But I would say that in the first 20 years, I never really asked. I just put my shoulder to the plow. I sit down like every 3 or 4 years now. When it's contract time, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, God, is this where you want me? How can I get? And if it is, I follow Augustine's rule. Love God. If you have rightly ordered loves, do whatever you want. So I'm thinking about what's the next strategic plan here. Is it something that I want to be a part of? Is it something that makes me so excited to wake up in the morning that I can't stop thinking about it? So that's the kind of thing that I'm after. And Lord willing, I'd be happy to do this 50 years, or if there are schools in heaven, 500 million years.
There you go.
So anyway,
and maybe your daughters will have kids in the next 5 years, and they'll be starting kindergarten in the next 10 years, and you have some kid, your own grandkids at the school.
No pressure, girls. But we are hopefully looking forward to that. I've heard that grandkids are so good that you should just skip having kids and go straight to grandkids.
That sounds exciting too. One day I'll be a grandpa, hopefully, with my kids. We'll see.
Amen.
Ty, thank you again so much for your time and all your years in education. Wishing you and your family and your daughters and your school nothing but the best, man. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Ty for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing up at the Veritas Academy up there in Pennsylvania, and I'm wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And as always, guys, I'm hoping you're able to take at least one thing away from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Well, before you go, just a couple minutes of your time, I want to make sure you guys are aware of the 3 free resources we have here at School Success. And the first one is, of course, the podcast. You guys are listening to it right now. We're dropping weekly episodes every Monday morning. So make sure you're subscribed so you're not missing out on the episodes that are coming out. We interview some really cool people and get a lot of really good insight and help that we're hoping you guys can just listen to an episode a week and get some really good strategies and some feedback and just encouragement on how to be a better school leader and educator. And so please make sure you're subscribed. And if you haven't yet and you love our content, we would love a 5-star review. That would mean the world to us. And second, if you go to our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com, in the top right-hand corner, there is a button called the School Success Report. We send the School Success Report out every single week, usually on a Tuesday, with different articles our team has put together, as well as some podcast highlights. We shout out a teacher or an educator, all in that report. It's something that you can get in your inbox every single week. And also, again, you got the podcast on Monday, you got the report coming out on Tuesdays. It's a way to make sure you guys are always growing and moving in the right direction as an educator. And so the team works really hard to cater that to make sure you guys are growing and being more successful. So please make sure you're subscribed to that. And last but not least, on our community Facebook group, we got it called the School Success Makers. Make sure you're part of the Facebook community. It's completely free. There's some articles we'll put in there, and we do posting, and we do obviously making sure you connect with other school leaders that are in the community as well. I'm personally in there, and I would love to see you in there as well. We will be back here next week with another awesome guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.